Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to Finance Committee meeting. My members to the evening are myself, the chair, Kelly Ricklick. My members are Mr. Dean Holland and Mrs. Amy May, and my alternate is Cheryl Ramos. Tonight is the proposed ordinance 15-2022, amendment to the permanent appropriations. Does anyone have any questions? Has everyone seen proposed ordinance? Gee, I need, let's go. Okay, what was requested under the ordinance 15, proposed ordinance 15-2022, general services maintenance, line item 101-1700-5-3502, 26,000. Mayor, I'll ask you for explanations for these, if you have those.
Yeah, Service Director McAbeer has actually been working on this with the law director, so go ahead, Ron. And what that is, and I think Beth had sent a little note out with it. Marvin's prosecutor's attorney's air conditioner and furnace went early on, and we never had nothing, or he never had nothing in his line item, so we used ours to put a new furnace and air condition, and I think it's down, I'd have to ask Beth, it's that line item now for City Hall is, I bet under 2,000, but Beth would know better than I do,
I think
and
it's
I know,
zero.
what is it?
I think it's 0.
Yeah, well, so under 2.
Okay.
And I know that for sure we have some conduit that's gonna have to come in because all the phone systems going over to fiber. So we're gonna have to get wood in here. And off the back side, they want a 4-inch conduit put in. And we're gonna drop it right into the server room versus over at the patchwork network. So it doesn't have to go 2 different places and then only run one thing to the patchwork if we have to. So we're not sure what that'll be yet. Waiting on Al Ledrick from Wood to give us something there. And just really to fulfill that line item back to really what it was. Do I think we'll use all that? Probably not, but just in case. Something
Okay.
else just like this would happen.
You'll just keep us informed as you get your quotes and so
Sure.
what goes. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that 26,000 doesn't go a long ways
No.
anymore.
No.
Okay, the air
Kelly.
conditioning.
Chairman,
Can
so
I
the-
ask, can I
have
finish
a
asking
question?
him? I want to finish asking my
Oh,
question, then I'll
okay.
ask you.
All right.
The furnace and air condition, is it for his office over here?
It's already in, yes.
It's for this.
Yeah, the old
Old
firehouse.
firehouse? Okay, that's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The old firehouse.
Now
That
I'm
was
gonna
my
see it. There
question.
you go. Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, the second item is One Ohio Opioid, line item 228-2300-5-3501, operations, $40,000.
Is that a funding?
That's how much grant we'll get in this year. So
Okay,
that's for this
so you just
year.
have a home for it is what
Yes.
you're making? Okay.
Mhm.
All right, and the last one is Master Capital, line item 437, 7700-5-5204, Tuscarora Park for $20,000.
That was talked about a couple of finance committee meetings ago and having to appropriate that for the track. It didn't get into the
Okay.
ordinance that was passed last meeting.
Okay,
I think things got mixed up. Marvin never saw our additions, and then you had to amend on the floor for one of them, and this one
Right.
didn't get put in, and
okay,
So
so
it's
this will
here now.
catch us up for all the items you know
Yes.
about that? we've-
Yes.
Okay, so that's the 20,000 that we passed the ordinance with resolution
Right.
2 meetings ago, okay? All right, does anyone else have any questions?
Mr.
about-
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Beth, with this 20, and now, and I know naturally it's up to council. I know the school has asked about this, so I don't know, everybody feels they want to amend part of it and put just one piece in or all of it. But I would ask for, you consider passing this on first reading tonight.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll be sure to propose that.
Okay.
See how it goes.
Thank you.
Okay. So could I have a motion? If there's no other questions by any of the members, administration, or public?
I'll make a motion to add ordinance 15, 2022 to tonight's agenda and pass on first reading.
Okay, do I have a second? Take a vote. Mrs. May?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes also. Okay, the second item I have on the agenda this evening is for permanent appropriations for the calendar year 2023. We are in August. I stated when we were doing appropriations, we are not going to go through last minute or toes to the fire. So I'm going to request to the mayor that you get your department heads and get them started on their budgets. And if we can have a partial budget by the first meeting in September so we can start looking at it. I'll meet with.
It's already being worked on.
Okay, as soon as you have it ready, would you get it me, then I'll work with the auditor, and then I can get it to the 7 council members for review. I would like to pass it on the first meeting in December, if we can swing it, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay,
Good deal.
okay. Does any of the council members have any questions or concerns about my request for budget 2023? Okay. I have no other items unless, yes, Mr. McAleer?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, and I'm just bringing this up, I haven't talked to Beth about this yet. But what you may see, come later on an appropriation ordinance, we received, a quote, approximately 2 weeks ago. We have to do an archaeological study for the, end of the runway, with Harry Clever. And got 3 different quotes, and Ohio Valley Archaeology from Columbus gave us the lowest quote, or the best quote, of $6,608.25, which out of, and this will be a Beth question, general fund, there's not enough there in the airport, so just bearing that in mind, shooting one over the bow to let everybody know that I'll have to go back, but that's the reason for that.
Okay.
That,
Well, when you get more
ask.
information and propose,
Yeah.
we'll work hard to get
Yeah.
that through. I am going to request for the budget, though, this year, that all projects be put in a spreadsheet format rather than a Word format that cannot be adjusted easy. So we can have a list of the projects separate, and then we can work back and forth. So Mayor, so it's easy to work with you and with Beth, we can look at those numbers so we can adjust those as we see fit or our funding will allow.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, now I'll ask again, does anyone have any other questions about the budget or anything for the Finance Committee? Yes,
I have
Mrs.
one
Locke.
thing. Council had voted to limit the amount going into master capital this year from income tax. I think we can adjust that, and I'll let you know first meeting in September.
Okay,
I think
Yeah.
we can give master capital more.
some of that change out around
Yeah.
what we did last year, okay. Does everybody understand what happened last year, that she had to do some adjustment, that she split that differently? Okay, yes, okay, Beth. Okay, one more time? Does anyone have any other items for the Finance Committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holland. Meeting adjourned at 6:24.
Okay, it's now 6:30. We're going to call the Public Works and Economics meeting to order. Members are Mrs. Ramos, Mr. Pace, and myself, and my alternate is Mr. Ricklick. We're going to have two things we're going to talk about, and the first one I'm going to put on hold just in case the law director gets here pretty soon, is proposed ordinance 14. But the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight is what was assigned to me about a month ago or so, was the act, talking about the adding the curb strips as part of the sidewalk program. And I'm sorry it took me a little longer to get on this because I wanted to research and kind of find out. And I guess in my opinion, the way the ordinance reads in our books, it's more in the spirit of a safety issue than a aesthetic issue, yeah. That it's, the spirit that they wrote it in, it was basically, you know, just so that way people could be able to walk around the city without having, you know, uneven sidewalks, and encouraging the public to do that. So, and kind of looking at past years, I mean, this is kind of an anomaly this year that we actually have money left over. It's almost always booked out. Stop me when I'm wrong here, Service Director, but booked out, always, never usually money left over. This is just a rare occurrence this year for some reason that people aren't getting their sidewalks fixed or in line to get them fixed. And so that's what I've researched, and I haven't really found, I tried to look at some of the communities that are kind of similar to us, and I just can't find anything on any of their books with the curb strips. Now, there's been a couple sidewalk programs I've come across and stuff, but nothing with the curb strips and you know, all that added to it and stuff. But I'm gonna turn it over to the service director. He can speak on it. We spoke on it a couple different times.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe you're right that years past, it's never happened. And then this year with trying to get it kicked down the field, I mean, we're 2 months past our deadline now, and we're getting closer, but we still have, I don't know, probably, I had it quick in my head, I think it was like 3,200 left, so. And we talked in the office today, we're still gonna try to get it as long as, because it does have an end date on it, on the form, let's say the application, I should say. So, as long as the contractor that is scheduled to do the work, they can finish it by that deadline, we're still gonna okay things. But, yeah, you're right, it's, typically I come here and I'll say, hey, we helped everybody but 2 people, or helped everybody but 4, so this was, definitely a different year. But again, I think we still may meet that, I do. And then again, that, with that money also, I think if you look at some of the ordinances farther, I don't remember it off the top of my head, that where if someone has a particular sidewalk that we deem unsafe, we can always force that individual to do that, and that would take it out of that fund also. Not that I'd ever want to do that, I'm just saying that
But on a typical year, Service Director, we usually don't have any money left over.
No.
Right. So if we were to add something like that, we would definitely have to add I mean, per spot, I mean, what's like a ballpark estimate of what that would cost, like, you know?
Well, we just got a unit price on that CDBG project. I want to say they gave us, but yeah, they're doing a lot more footage, so it's $7.50 something a foot. So now I can tell you that it didn't hurt us just having the sidewalk, because over on Union Avenue on the Dover side there at on Union just past Wabash, Mr. Barry did it and paid for the sidewalks, and he did put curb in, which does look good. So I think just that little bit of help with the sidewalk was enough for JB to get that done too. But yeah, it's typically this has been a rare year, but we all know that it's been strange for more than just this. But again, I think that we have used it up every year since I've been part of it, and again, I think this year we'll do the same. I do.
Any questions from committee? Mrs. Ramos?
I was just thinking curbs are not necessarily aesthetically, although that's nice, but I was thinking, for the drainage issue and direction of the flow of the water down the street. So could we, if we add curbs, of course, I'm in favor of that, but do a priority list, like sidewalks are top priority and curbs would be second? Not for the aesthetics, for the
Oh,
draining.
I'm sorry. I mean, I think you could. What would we do, I guess on this typical year here, if you had the first three out of the chute had $6,000 worth of curb, and then these people that came in for the sidewalks come in later, what would you do, I guess?
Well.
And I'll do whatever you direct me to do, I'm just saying, I think it's a safe route, I think is typically what you like to have, is a safe route as far as, I understand drainage, sure, we have drainage issues, but you still have drainage issues, I mean, look at 4th Street Northwest with curbs and and they still have drainage issues. Does it help? Yeah. Direct it? Yeah. But you can go on 4th Street every day of the week, and it holds a ton of rain, so.
It's more about what's in the guts underneath.
Yeah, so, but, whichever way, I'm fine with. I think just direct me the way, how you'd wanna, like, okay, let's cut it off at June 1st for sidewalks.
I mean, is it
None of this
something that
takes them in for curb.
If we decided we wanted to do this, would it be, how much money would we have to add to that budget? For,
Or you can even keep the same budget,
Well-
because if we added 1 year to it, not very much, but like you said, apply for sidewalks till funds are exhausted, then we'll take money for curbs.
but like, well, that's what I was saying.
It's
is
not like prioritize.
I don't remember a year other than this one that I've been around council that we've never exhausted it.
No, but I mean, we've increased it 1 year.
Yeah, we're at, the whole budget reads 40, but we get 20 to help the
Right.
folks with, yeah. Yeah, it really, to me, makes never mind to me, just how we do that. Just remember when you say, hey, let's do it, what we do we stop taking for sidewalks on a certain date, and then after that's curb? Whichever way is easiest is fine, it's not gonna be anything
I'm
off
just afraid,
us.
I don't want less people to be able to get their sidewalks done. Because to me, that's the main priority.
Well,
was,
that's what I think if you started the curb process, you'd be taking away from sidewalks no matter what.
Unless you added more to that budget,
Unless you-
if we wanted to really do that, but, Mr. Rick, like I saw.
Yes, I'm the one who proposed that to your committee. My idea was, yes, you put it, as you do have a deadline for the sidewalks, you keep that deadline. After that deadline, if there's funds available, then it's for either or, is how I proposed that to be looking. Because I think curbs are more important than just appeal. It keeps the cars off your curb strip. With every curb strip you see that has no curb because you paved too much and haven't ground the paving down, people start parking in there. It makes areas of rutting and mud in the curb strip. It's just the curb that we're asking money for. If the curb strip needs repaired, that's additional money. We're not talking that. We're talking adding the curbs to the program after the date that you allow the sidewalks. And then at that time, if you extend it for 3 weeks or whatever you have that extension is, it's for either or. So if another sidewalk comes in, yes, you could use it for sidewalk, but if there's money available for a curb, that's all good also. And there has been more than one, this past year, that money's been left over. It has been multiple years that money has been left over. I know of 3 years that I personally know of. But again, that's not the intent of this discussion. The intent of the discussion is it worthwhile to have curbs in the program? I believe it is. But I
Yeah,
believe
whatever.
sidewalks are more important. That's right, for safe walkways, but I also believe curbs has a reason. So why would we do allotment? Why do we have the curbs in then? Let's sell leave curbs out, put more sidewalks in. I mean,
They sidewalk all those also, it's just not that they don't do sidewalks in
not all the
the
time.
allotments. Well, everyone, I can tell you that
Everyone, you've been since service director, okay, but not,
Yeah.
again, I
Well,
may
by
tell you two right
ordinance, they
now
have
that
to
don't
have
have
a curb.
sidewalks to them.
Right.
But that's not,
Yeah, no.
again, that's not the intent of our discussion
As
here.
long as I'm being.
Yeah,
Yeah, whichever comes out of Mr. Longer's thing, you know, naturally I'll do it, but I mean, it's his.
Yes, Mr. Pace.
So Kelly, on your proposal, if somebody pays for the sidewalk, do they also get the curb?
No,
Or would you
Only-
get-
no,
only if
your
they
first
need it.
time is your sidewalk, that first whatever
Right.
time frame it is. After that time frame, if there's funding left over,
Then they get their
it's
curb.
for either or, available to the public, all public, not
So if
just,
you-
On a first come, first.
first, yeah,
So
first
if
one
you have-
applies.
If you have 6 houses and one person applies for the sidewalk, they get the sidewalk.
Yes,
And then there's money left over, then they get the curb.
yeah,
So you only have one curb and the rest, the 3 houses on this side, 3 houses on this side have no curb?
yep.
You're
I
gonna
can
have
show,
to,
I can show you what that
Because you
is.
have to
Also-
pay
Wouldn't that be kinda,
50%.
also, you're gonna have to come up with a grading scale for that,
What condition are the worst ones?
yeah. It's
How
already,
about none?
that's,
That's what I'm saying. Where
I
I'm
mean,
talking
but you
about-
gotta grade it against somebody else's. That's what you're doing with sidewalks, which is not a blank check, yeah, you got it, it's all graded.
That's right.
And Josh and I grade all of them, so you'd have to come up with a, whichever way you wanna grade it. Also, it just isn't, you know, you get it, but I mean,
No,
I
I
wouldn't
believe-
think you'd want it that
I
way.
believe that a grading system should be done by the service director's department, yeah. You should.
I figured you
Grade-
would.
I
I figured you
don't want me to
would.
do that.
I figured you would.
You don't want me to do that.
I figured you would. I would figure nothing less would count.
Mrs. Rollins?
Well, I was thinking, like Kelly, if they had no curb, if they've already got a curb and it's a functional curb, they don't need to have a new one.
What if they
And-
want it?
That'd be part of the grading system.
They're
Well,
willing
then
to
they
pay
can
the
pay
half.
for the whole thing. If it's still functional and it's graded okay, and it's still functioning, you pay for your own whole curb. Cause I mean, with this program, you have to pay 50%, so you actually catch the people that have the money to pay for half their sidewalk anyways. So, yeah, you would need, I would think, my vision was, or when I was thinking about it, was that no curb. And if you apply for a curb, then,
Are you saying like the same as Mr. Ricklick
yeah,
after
basically, yeah,
the cutoff time for the sidewalks, whatever's left over, which,
yeah.
Right now, it reads June 1st by application, Stan, so,
We might have to change that, huh?
oh,
Or is
absolutely,
that
no,
too
no,
late?
if the way you're going, you have to change it, absolutely,
because there won't be that
100%.
many. Like I said, I mean, that's my own opinion, is that there's very
Well,
rare,
even now, we've changed it several times for this year.
very
Oh,
rarely
absolutely.
there's
Did you
money
spend
left
the
over.
money?
Try to do it, absolutely.
So could, if you're, instead of a hard deadline, or could you extend the deadline, then put the curbs and sidewalk, either or, like you said, after a later deadline? June 1st is, to me, kinda early.
But you
Tip-
get them April 1st, so it gives you 2 months to require that, so I don't know how long it takes to reach out to somebody, get a quote back.
It doesn't have to be complete, it doesn't have to be completely by June first, you just have to.
Application.
Application by.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause-
the application, so I mean, you got 2 months to do that. If you wanna dabble in that, I would definitely suggest a cutoff date, a hard cutoff date for sidewalks, because you gotta have a deadline to say before you can go to, you know, and I would just put yourself in the constituents' eyes of, you know, I'm waiting, so, well, after June 15th, they're done on sidewalks, I can let you know at that time. So you definitely have to have a hard date and time for sure, yeah, for sure.
Mr. Service Director, like citywide, I mean, is there long stretches of neighborhood roads that don't have curb strips?
Well, I wouldn't know what to,
So, I mean, if we did this, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Some
what
of
Mr.
them
Pace
were
was
in
saying.
my ward.
Kind of what Mr. Pace was saying is like, we'll get one curb strip and then 4 houses around it that don't, you know, I mean, that's,
yeah, you're not gonna fix,
you know, you could-
yeah, I see what you're getting at.
That's not-
Are you gonna fix you'll fix it for that
You're looking
individual,
at this
you're not gonna
you're not
fix
gonna fix
a,
it for the whole neighborhood.
yeah, you're not gonna fix a
No.
drainage
Yeah, you
issue
wouldn't
by
fix
one
it.
house, no. Cause if it's 7 here don't have it, and 1 does, it goes to the next place and commits it, no, you're not gonna, yeah, I see what you're getting at, yeah.
It's
I
the
guess-
same with the sidewalk. You can have one in front of one house brand-new sidewalk, cause they applied and got accepted, et cetera. And then the rest of the neighborhood doesn't have
Right.
new sidewalks.
Well, I'm saying the ones that don't have curb strips at all, not just the
Yeah.
ones that are damaged or whatever, you know, I mean, that's what I'm saying. But in my opinion, I think that would look kind of
Well,
not very.
there's some neighborhoods that don't even have sidewalks.
Oh, yeah, ton of 'em.
Yeah.
Tons of them. There sure is.
All right, anybody else in council have any comments? Mr. Holland?
Mr. Chairman, does, in regard to the curbs, does that also include the gutter?
Would that,
If we'd have to spec it that way, curb and gutter is a different item. I know that, Mr. Barry out there just put a curb in, is all he did. You know, the curb and gutters, that, you know, that other little, that's a whole different item. I mean, whatever, you typically don't see it much anymore, curb and gutter, as far as from the contractors on the contractor's list, let's put it that way. Whenever you do a Zeke, or what, I'm sorry, Holmes Concrete comes in, they've got the machine, they're doing it all day long. But a contractor that we have that's usually on the sidewalk program, they're just forming up a curb, and that's all they're doing, Dean, or Councilman Holland, I'm sorry. Yeah, and then we gotta come in and patch the road then. So once they do it, cause there's that gap there, we come in and patch in, is what we do.
Mr. Chairman, as a part of the gutter becomes in essence a part of the water, or the roadway for water flow. Is that not true, Mr. Serviceman?
I'm sorry, say that again, Dean, I don't think I quite,
The gutter becomes a part of the roadway for water flow.
yeah, and I think that if you look at these that we have, by doing that, and just, let's just say you go down Tuscarora Avenue, and you do one, and they don't have any curb, you're gonna take care of in front of that house, but you didn't do anything to the other 10 houses above it or behind as far as stormwater control. You did it for that house, correct. But you didn't fix the huge issue would be make sure you do it from, you wanna get it to a catch basin that sits on the end of Second and Tuscarora, you wanna run it the whole way to get there. You run one, and it's gonna go in the next yard. And I shouldn't say that one, because that has curbs on every bit of it, but, just go on Lake Street or something where it doesn't have that. It's gonna go and just sit, and I'm telling you, curbs don't solve it all. Go out on 4th Street never during the rain, that project has been, but on Northwest, from Minnick out, all the water still sits there.
Okay, I think actual drainage is a separate topic from what we're talking about. But having the benefit of having worked for 4 different cities, in every city, the city government was responsible for curbs and gutters. Whether it was repair, replacement, the initial installation, whatever it might be, that was the city's responsibility. And I think ultimately, the question that I have is, okay, I'm gonna pay half of my sidewalk for repair. Okay, now I'm gonna pay half of the curb for either repair or I don't have one. Okay, does that mean that now I'm gonna be thinking about, or should be thinking about, half of the gutter? And then does that extend further out? Do I pay for half of the roadway? I don't understand where we're going here. In my opinion, the city ought to be paying for curbs and gutters.
okay. Well, I gave us quite a bit to think about on this. I definitely wanted to have a couple meetings on this anyways. So we'll kind of table that for now. I mean, we don't have any pre-legislation or anything anyway, so, but that'll give us something to think about. And until we call another meeting on it. All right, the other thing I wanted to talk to tonight is proposed ordinance 14. It's the wireless update, and I'm gonna turn this over to our law director, Mr. Payne.
Thank you. Our wireless infrastructure, the state of Ohio gives cities a certain amount of control when it comes to wireless infrastructure, and ours has not been updated since 1995. I've come to this body before from time to time with things that needed updated that just hadn't been looked at. And this was something that I was reviewing with the building and zoning inspector. Particularly now, we're getting a lot more requests for 5G infrastructure. And I looked at this and I was like, you know, we're outdated since 1995, and wireless has come a long way since 1995. And really, this is just for purposes of updating our current existing laws, which are outdated. They are outdated. And that's really all this is. If you're gonna ask me to explain to you the minutia in there, your wireless communications people are gonna understand what's in there a lot better. They're probably the ones that actually wrote the legislation. That it's modeled after the, what's in the Ohio Revised Code, what's permissible. The key component is though, that we can charge for certain things, and that's what this allows us to do. And this just updates it. That's really the thing that's most important to us.
So from the bag phone to our iPhones.
Yep.
No, Mr. Chairman, the update would also allow us to, as the law director mentioned, start collecting revenue that we haven't been collecting because of their use of city right-of-ways, city poles, utility poles. So we've missed out, I think, on a substantial amount of revenue over the years because this legislation has not been updated.
Okay, and Mr. Mayor, would this, the funds that we would collect, that would go into that fund we set up, was it a couple of years ago?
You know, if council wants to direct it there, but, you know, I would think it would just go in the general fund.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, any questions from committee? Mrs. Ramos?
So on recovery cost, which is the fees we're talking about, is that a yearly fee that they have to pay? The one to the 250, or is that just the application process?
That's just the application fee.
Okay, and then the yearly fee is the 200?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a-
And then it goes up according to the Ohio Revised Code. It increases by 10% every 5 years automatically.
Anybody else, committee?
Oh, I just had
Oh,
one
sure.
follow-up
Go
question.
ahead, Mrs. Ramos.
So is this the lowest amount that we can charge, the 200?
250.
Well, the 250 is the application fee, but the yearly fee is 200. I mean, can
Well,
we
they-
charge more?
You can, it increases on a yearly basis.
Every 5 years, 10%.
Like I said, the wireless communications people wrote the legislation. This is based on what's in the Ohio Revised Code.
Okay.
Anybody else on council? No? Administration?
Yeah, do you have a question?
Oh, yes, Mr. Ripley.
Does this have any parts of regulations where and where not they can put stuff according to the city?
Yeah, we can control, I mean, we don't have to give a permit if we don't want it, there.
That's what I mean, is that, we're not forced to give a permit?
No,
to
we're not.
follow the guidelines. We still
we're
have
not.
the regulations. Not
Yes.
control, not worried about controlling, I just want to regulate where and when these devices are placed.
Yes, they have to get a permit from us, so if we want to deny them a permit, we can.
So we can add legislation to that that would create a, let's just say there's a board that does the reviews.
There's already in here, if I read it correctly, they have to apply to the building zoning
Yes.
administrator, and they interview them.
Right, but I was saying if there's a board, or is this one individual, or is it a group? That's what I was getting at. I didn't really think.
I
it's-
didn't read group
It
in
didn't say,
here.
it didn't say that, that's what I was trying to get at. Would there be a need of a board? Yes.
I don't believe so. I think we've got
asking you from
enough
your-
boards. I think I think that's what you trust your administration to do.
Mr. Pate, is there a emergency rush on this, since we've been waiting since 95, or do you?
Not an emergency rush, but the rush is that we are behind,
Okay, so
and we can't start collecting under this until
Yeah.
it's passed, so.
you'd like this passed as an emergency?
If you can pass it on emergency, I wouldn't have any objection to that. It's really just updating to where we're supposed to be.
Okay,
It's not a dramatic change that would require heavy public input. In fact, if anything, I would say there possibly is an emergency need because we're behind, our current one is outdated.
okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
And if I could add, speaking of, it's just starting to come around real heavy right now because of what's going on on Tuscarawas Avenue. They're building out from there. And we just okayed 30 permits for there with $300 a piece just 2 weeks ago. So I think with all the fiber, and if you look at all the money that Ohio gave to the served and all that, I think you're gonna see the money get spread around, and I think it's gonna get big,
Okay.
quick.
Okay, anybody in committee see any action be taken on proposed ordinance 14?
Can-
Yes, Mrs. Rollins.
One more
One
question,
okay.
clarify. These are towers, right? We're talking about
No.
some kind of tower, even
No.
if,
They can install,
No, 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 no.
No.
they can install on a
They're
pole.
what?
Anything, really.
Well,
Poles and right of ways.
the
Yeah,
last
you see
thing we
sticking
did-
off of like a telephone, or off of a light pole, the little, that's
Oh,
what they
okay.
are, right?
And,
Yeah.
and some of them that's on the plans, some of the new allotments, if you go in the back of people's house where they got the electric under that green little box, something like that, about half the size of that will be in some of the curb strips. Some of those little items like that,
okay.
yeah. Like you see some of them, they're already that, where did I just see one the other day, not up Countryside, but, up off Countryside, there's a little one in a bush right there that's, it's old phone, but like that's there now. And there's like, but it's no of those 200-foot towers, 100-foot towers, no, that's not what you're okaying.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Rickler.
Is there a dollar figure we're thinking per year? Has there been any studies like that that says, we're looking at 20,000, we're looking at 100,000?
Well, this permits here just came into 9, so I don't know, what's gonna happen if the next person, this is just Frontier. We just had someone in the office here, 3 weeks ago that wants to, Alta Fiber, I can't remember their name, Alta Fiber or something.
Fiber.
Yeah, but, so,
Cincinnati Bell.
I think all that is gonna start with the ridiculous money that the state's throwing at them.
Because my concern is that the other utilities that are in front of our water lines, our sewer lines, now, we're talking curb strip, mostly is where these devices are planned for, that you see
No,
so
not,
far.
a few of them, when I say those pops thing, it's not 30 of them's gonna be all around the town
No,
like that,
but-
no.
But are they basically taking the right of ways in the front of the properties, are you seeing?
That's, and some in the rear, and some on the sides,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because to me, that, progress is going to go. We're not gonna stop the movement forward. It's just, is the money, income going to justify having somebody looking over this? That's why I'm just wondering that too. So is the gross money coming gonna be good for the city? Are we speculating that?
Well, it's
Right now, we're not getting any.
Anything-
It's revenue that we're not gonna get
And
if
you
we
still
don't,
have to oversee it.
and they're still gonna do it.
Mr. Service Director, do you have any reason to believe that we're gonna have more issues with having those little boxes every couple houses, or?
I don't see, the only reason I say I don't is because, there's a few places in town that would be behind we're in the sidewalks with the water lines and different things, and there's some storm stuff that's over in there. But naturally, if it sees it and we see it on the plan, we go out and mark our stuff, be like, we gotta veto that one. And fortunate enough, these 30, a couple been in the rear, that's no brainer, but we do have some stuff runs in the rear, I shouldn't say that, but it's been,
Are they
everything has
eyesores?
been out of it, and then we'll look at curb boxes, if a curb box sits here, they wanna sit it here, naturally, we ain't gonna let them drill there either, we just can't have it, because you gotta be able to get down on that person's service. So, we're looking at them and making sure that there's not gonna be any conflicts. If your water's gotta be shut off and they can't find your valve, but all that stuff's GIS now, so we just look at it and say, yeah, it's okay, you're good. Your curb box is here, you don't want that box sitting here. you know what I mean, one of the boxes, so.
I hate to rush us on this, but, was there any action from committee to take tonight on proposed ordinance 14?
I'll make a motion to add ordinance 14, 2022 to tonight's agenda.
Thank you, and, pass on an emergency.
Yeah, pass on first reading.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Mrs. Ramos, and we'll have a vote. Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Ramos?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. And anything else come before Public Works? No? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Ramos.
When you're ready.
All right, it's 7 o'clock and call to order our committee of the whole this evening. I appreciate everybody coming to council chambers tonight. Everybody, I think I've sent out a week or so ago, and I know Marvin had sent it out probably a month or so ago about, High Revised Code 731-06 about redistricting, and we've got until what, October to do it. So, we need to talk about whether we want to go through the process of redistricting or, stay the way we are. I think you've had a chance to read through the information that Marvin has sent out, and, we do have a couple wards that have exceeded the 10%, I think, is
Yeah.
the threshold, and
Yeah, Mr. President, anything over 10%, according to Ohio, in excess of 10% is automatically considered dilution. After that, the burden shifts to the municipality to justify the deviation by showing one of the things that I articulated in there. I'd be happy to go over this out loud if you want me to, or however you want to do it. We did a breakdown. The Ohio Revised Code, section 731.06 requires, after you have a census every 10 years, based on the census, to make sure that your districts are equal. A deviation of, in excess of 10% is presumed to be unequal. However, that doesn't mean you have to change it. In fact, it says that to justify the deviation, you have to show three things. You have to articulate a rational state policy that can justify the deviation, explain how the apportionment plan may reasonably be said to advance the rational state policy, and demonstrate that the resulting deviation does not exceed constitutional limits. So in essence, this is what's called a rational basis test. In the law, there are three levels of tests. There is the highest being strict scrutiny, then intermediate scrutiny, and then you have rational basis test. The highest level, strict scrutiny, is what we apply to First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. If the state, or in this case the government, passes a law with regards to restricting speech, that's going to be analyzed by the courts at the highest level, strict scrutiny, and it's very, very hard to overcome that. The easiest one to overcome, though, is a rational basis test. Your rational basis test would be like an annexation. That's an example of where we would apply a rational basis test. You'd have a good government reason to want to annex into the city. That's gonna hold up in court. So here we're looking at a rational basis test. So the thing that is clear, though, is that, in looking at this, is that the council must decide whether or not they want to redistrict. That burden falls squarely upon the city council. What I did was give you all the options here and tell you that technically we are outside the limit. We've got about over the 10% limit. But we can also justify that with a rational basis scrutiny. I believe that what we'd have to do is we would probably have to hire an outside firm to come in to do the redistricting. I don't know that I'm positive, having worked for the city for over 10 years, that we don't have the facilities here to do that ourselves, or the wherewithal to do that. I have not looked into what it would cost. I do know of a couple of different places that do it, but we're about 8% over. So I guess the question is, this body needs to decide whether they want to do that. Dover, they just did a voice vote that they decided they weren't going to change theirs. They felt they had too much going on right now as it is. This was at the height of when they were dealing with their situation over there with the mayor. And certainly that's a rational basis for not taking on something this large at this time. So that's where we are, and it's really up to you folks, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on that.
Mr. Ricklick?
Can we revisit this next year if we like, or are we limited to this October? Is this the-
Well, they want you to do it by this October. What could happen is the Secretary of State could come in and say, and the burden, they can come in and do it for us. They can come in and say, you have to do this or you don't have to do it. But I believe the deadline's supposed to be done this year in accordance with the sentences. So I don't know that we could really revisit it.
What's your thoughts on that, Kelly? What are you thinking about next year?
It's election year. That's the only reason. That's the only reason, if you're gonna do it, I feel you're gonna do it, you do it now. I mean, if you could revisit, you'd wait till after the next election, is what I would do. But
Well, now the awards are up for election
Marvin,
next year.
do you have any idea what it would cost? If you checked around, like, is it 40 grand, is it 50 grand?
I did not talk to any of the firms that do it.
I mean, I would think to get an educated thing, whether you wanna do it, I would think you'd wanna know. If it's 5,000, it's a no, to me, and I'm not counsel, I'm just saying, I'm just preaching for me, a thing like, a no-brainer, goes have someone do it, but I think you're talking way more money than that.
I do too. I think it's gonna be way more than that.
I think Dover was on the, in my opinion, in the right idea of just, I mean, unless, because we haven't had an outpouring of citizens.
Well, and keep in mind, that's who would challenge this. A citizen in one of the wards is saying, we're underrepresented,
Yeah.
and could bring a suit of that nature, but I don't know that that's happening.
Mrs. Ramos?
In looking at the maps as they currently stand, my thought was we could do it ourselves. And I had an idea. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have my map. It's way back there. So my ward is one that has more people. Okay, so we can, what I was looking at, we could take off some of the top chunks at my ward and move them over to 2, which would give him more. Now, we'd have to see how many households are there or how many people. And looking down, thank you, like Shelmar can really, where it's right next to 4.
Well, actually, it's closer to 2.
Yeah, but down here, and this is
Because-
4 right there.
Because
See?
part of 4 is nowhere near the other part of 4.
Yeah, it is right there. This is part 4.
There's one on east side, and there's one on the south side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they don't,
So, see, this is 4, and there's Shelmar right there.
There's 2 here.
that's 2 right there.
Right here is 4.
That's 4 down there,
Yeah.
but that's
This
2
is
right
4,
across
the
the street.
blue is 4.
Yes.
Correct.
Right, so it's adjoining that. So, I mean,
It does touch.
I thought that we could,
Seems that is true.
to make it
'Cause we're not
more
talking-
even, we could just redraw the maps ourselves.
But is it that easy that we can do it ourselves?
I'm not
If
a
we
I'm not
have
an attorney,
to.
not a map maker, so don't ask.
Yeah,
Well, I
and there's
mean,
a lot of people in Shelmar that are just,
Yeah, so
A lot
when
of
you
registered
need,
voters.
okay, here's my figures.
It's not based on registered voters, it's based on
Based on
population.
People.
Yeah.
So, if you move, okay, Ward 3 is 441 over, 0.75. Okay, so, yeah,
How does that happen?
I don't know, baby or something. I have no idea. How does that happen?
We
Good
don't wanna
question,
go
Mitch.
there.
Okay, so you move 369.25 over to Ward 4, and that, because that's what they're lacking,
so that'd be about half of it.
according to your number. So, and we'd have to see the
'Cause
numbers.
you have over 800 people living down there.
Oh, okay. So then I might put them over,
So that would
so
put them over, then I would need something.
how
there.
about, down at the part where,
Oh, yeah.
the other, is it Starlight Trailer Park? The one by Lowe's?
That's Ward 4, isn't it?
No,
Yes.
that's 3.
That's horrible.
right there.
That's,
But is that a big
That's-
enough difference to go through this process?
Well, that's what I'm saying, we have to find out where the, but I think that we
That's
could
all
do
these-
ourselves, and another choice
she's
is
talking about here.
delegate the power to city administration.
Oh, I bet you would. You're just coming up with a big old drawing of a plan now, all of a sudden, let's do that.
Mr.
So I think we could do it.
Mr. Silverite had a question.
So the,
I'm sorry,
with
Jimmy.
with the ability to come up with a rational reason as to why we wouldn't want to do it, is anything, I mean, it's going to cost us money for, I'm not sure what isn't much of an issue across the board, just looking at the numbers. However, if being able to use it is expensive is rationale, would we have any legal standing? I mean, if we could do it ourselves, I'm all for it. I'm not sure there's necessarily a reason, but would we have any legal foot to stand on by the individuals who are representing some of these individuals by saying, okay, we're just going to adjust the line here or there? I don't,
Well, we can certainly adjust the lines. I
Yeah,
mean,
you
we
just
have
notify 'em.
full legal ability to do that. Mayor, were you on council by any chance when this came up 10 years ago?
Yes.
What, if you could shed some insight, I looked in the law director's file, the only thing that I could find was the legislation that set the boundaries. I didn't find any contracts where we brought in an outside source or how we did it.
Yeah, it was a consultant. Brad was his first name, and he was from Dover. And he had done this before with other communities. So the city hired him to redraw the lines.
Okay.
That's my recollection. But this is, I mean, this can be an expensive undertaking because you have to make sure those lines are right.
I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable us being responsible for, because then legal action, we would be the ones ultimately responsible then if we drew the line, new lines.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, now, if you're gonna do it, you need to bring, I would suggest bringing a professional, I wouldn't suggest
Yeah,
doing it
and I
yourself.
will tell you, I put RFPs out for a study of our zoning, revising our zoning, which hasn't been revised since 1987. And those are coming in around $50,000.
Mr. Pace.
So looking at the city ward map, the numbers don't have to be exact, so we don't have to take 300 here and make sure Jimmy and I get 150 of each from Dan's ward or Cheryl's ward. There's lines on the map that we could get those numbers closer just by looking at them, at least between wards 2 and 3, not so much about 3 and 4, maybe even 1 and 2. But I'm kind of with Cheryl, I don't think it'd be too difficult. But I'm also new to this, so, just for example, there's between, Ward 2 and Ward 3, on First Drive Northeast, there's like 2 blocks that makes no sense to be in Ward 3 anyway. No offense, Dan, but,
Well, you could say the same thing about the way we're split up.
well, yeah, I mean, that too. I just saw the way this jet's in.
Not even, I mean, at least mine's touching, it's all one
Well,
section.
we're not talking about redrawing. We're just
Well-
talking about, I'm talking about, and Mitch too, just moving a section to this ward, a section to this ward from the the wards that
But
have
it's-
too
there's so
much
many rentals that the
population.
numbers are gonna change, and we're gonna be back doing this in the next
Well,
section.
but 10 years.
Yeah,
It takes
10
Well,
10
you
years.
have to do it every 10 years anyways.
Mr. Silverite.
just a general question to council. Rather than spinning our wheels on this, my opinion, if we can come up with a rational reason not to do it, we live in an area that we're not talking about, it's spread out over mass quantities of miles. You can really walk anywhere within the town and quickly. I mean, from one end to the other, it's not like it's going to take you days. Before we go through and go back and forth, is there a reason? I don't see one necessarily. Is there anyone see a valid reason to where we have to redraw these districts?
Well, the only valid reason would be
if we had
One district
to,
is lighter than the
yeah.
other, that's the only reason.
But if
So
we're
That's why they're
saying
asking
that
us
if we do a rational, that we say no, then now the Secretary of State would come back, then we'd have to revisit that process. I mean,
Then it's my problem to deal with, not yours. But,
We'll go from the legislative.
Just solved it right there.
Judicial.
Mayor, what I was wondering, since some people are talking about trying to do it themselves, what if we brought Larry Loudermilk in to ask, who has experience with maps, and asked him, how hard would it be to move a couple from here over to there? Is that reasonable?
Who's gonna count the people in the house?
I hear everybody talking about, I move this line, but you have no idea what you moved. Did you move 14 people, or did you move 1,400 people?
And a lot of these rentals.
I can draw a line, I'll go do it with a
3 months,
crayon.
they're not there.
But I didn't count the
These people, they had a census, they're not there
You
anymore.
have to think of people
Population.
and not
I
lines.
make a motion, yeah, here, I'll make
Right.
a motion.
What if,
I need a recommendation that we take it to council for a voice vote
Oh,
tonight.
how about a committee?
No, I'm gonna make a motion to take a voice vote.
All right, we have Mr. Rickley.
That's why I'd like to make a
Well-
motion, to take a voice vote, whether that we do not change the map.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
All right, Mr.
Hold on a second.
Discussion.
You still have to base it on something. You have to base it on, it can't be, we just don't want to do it. It needs to be, there has to be some rational
Cost.
basis. What I was hoping is that somebody might, and I guess I probably should have done this, called around and seen how much it would cost to bring somebody in to do it.
I already know it's gonna be too much.
Well,
Keep saying, it's gonna be too much.
if they come in and say it's gonna be $50,000 to shift,
I'll say, for the reason of
8%.
COVID, increase of COVID, that we'd have to go door to door to find out how many people are there. I think it's not a wise thing to produce at this time. That's a rational decision that due to the health of our population, I would like to leave it alone for 10 years to next census.
I would second that. I second that. Based on COVID populations and doing the door to door, I don't feel it's a good time to be able to do that.
I just saw yesterday, the increase in our areas has been really a factor to the health department.
so no problem with that.
All right, so we have let's do a voice vote here.
We have to do a vote first here.
Mr. Seldright was second?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Rickliff?
Yes.
Mr. Seldright?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
yes,
Mr. Lonzer?
Yes.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
no,
Mrs. Ramos?
I'm looking at Marvin's face.
That's not a yes or no.
I'm gonna say no.
All right, so it's passed, and we'll put it on agenda tonight to do a voice vote in council. Are there any other issues for the committee of the whole?
I'll inform the Board of Elections that the city has decided to take no action.
That was our voice vote there.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn? Mr. Seldright, second. Mrs. May, thank you.
Second.
Adjourned at 7:17.
She was booking, she was.
I got you.
This meeting of New Philadelphia City Council will now come to order. Would you please rise and remain standing for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Father, we gather here as City Council to serve the citizens of New Philadelphia. We just pray that you will guide our decision-making here this evening. Father, as always, we continue to pray for the health and the safety of our citizens. We pray for the health and safety of our police and firemen as they do their jobs. And also, Lord, that we, special prayer as schools come back in session within the next 2 weeks. We just pray for our children as they return to school, that all the teachers, that we have a safe new year. And we just give you all the praise. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And again, I'd like to welcome those who are watching via the streaming this evening as our council meeting. We'll do roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Present.
Mr. Lonzer.
Here.
Mrs. May.
Present.
Mr. Pace.
Present.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Ricklick.
Present.
Mr. Seldenright.
Here.
All right, thank you. Everybody's had a chance to review the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda tonight? Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I'd like to add ordinance 15, 2022 to the agenda this evening.
Do I have a second? Ms. Alonso, thank you. Any discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, I need any other, yes, Ms. Alonso.
Yes, I'd like to add proposed ordinance 14, 2022 to tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Pace, thank you. Any discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
Any other additions this evening? Here now to entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the two additions. Mr. Ricklick,
Make a motion to approve the agenda as stated.
do I have a second? Ms. Ramos,
Second.
thank you. All right, any questions from administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, agenda has been approved. Minutes, everybody's had a chance to review the minutes that were emailed out to everyone. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the minutes. All right, Mr. Seldenright, need a second? Mr. Holland, thank you. Any discussion by administration? Council, roll call.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Abstain.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right, correspondence, Ms. Courtright.
To Clerk of Council from Treasurer Tom Gerber dated August 1st, 2022. This is the City of New Philadelphia, July 2022 deposits to the general account. To Council and Administration from Executive Administrative Assistant to the Mayor Jamie Bailey dated August 1st, 2022. This is the Mayor's month-end report for the month of July. To President Kemp from Auditor Gundy dated August 4th, 2022. This is a request for the appropriations ordinance to be placed into a committee. President Kemp asked Councilman Ricklick to take this ordinance into his committee. To Council and Administration from Income Tax Administrator for the City, Vicki Daniels. This is dated August 4th, 2022. This is the July 2022 Income Tax Report. To Council and Administration from the Auditor's Office dated August 4th, 2022. This is the expense report with encumbrance details and the statement of cash position from Revenue and Expense for July of 2022. To Council and Administration from Mayor Day dated August 8th, 2022. This is an email titled Funding Breakdown for the Pickleball Courts. And to Council and Administration from Mayor Day dated August 8th, 2022. This is the Mayor's report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Ms. Courtright. All right, we'll move into our administrative reports. First up is Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members, fellow administrators, and guests. Three things I want to highlight in the report I sent you earlier today. At noon today, a groundbreaking ceremony was held at Tuscarora Park to mark the beginning of pickleball court construction. 4 courts will be built on Al Maloney Way, just north of the existing tennis courts. The $220,000 project will take a month to 6 weeks to complete. It's being funded by private donations and $30,000 from the City Parks Department budget. Tomorrow, members of the city safety forces will be meeting with local church representatives to discuss security and become familiar with any plans that churches may have to respond to active shooter and related emergencies. The meeting continues our initiative to create a community-wide response plan. And somewhat related to that, I want to report the city will be using the $6,600 monthly payments from Ohio's opioid settlement to help fund a second school resource officer for New Philadelphia City Schools. The leaders of New Philadelphia Safety Forces, Health Commissioner Iono, and Law Director Fate all agreed that that would be the best use of the money. And New Philadelphia School Superintendent Amy Wentworth also agreed at a meeting we had with her last Friday. Together, we will now seek additional funding for the position and begin the process of selecting and training a member of our current police force to assume school resource officer duties. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Any questions for Mayor Day?
Thank you.
All right. Move on. Service Director, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Last Thursday, August the 4th, we opened bids for the Park Lane water improvement project. And happy to report we did get 4 bids received. So we'll wait on the engineer's award for that. And once we do that, we'll go to Board of Control. And then I will get back with everyone on who we picked and the price. But I will say with pricing, again, we have to go through everything, make sure, there's 1,800 foot of pipe that they allowed for, so we're still checking all those numbers. But right now, it's about 2% under engineer's quote, so that's encouraging. Again, so that it's good that we had 4 bids. That we know Glen Drive bid out twice and no one's has bid on that, so that was encouraging. Also, out on 2nd Street Northwest, the 2022 CDBG project is starting to go underway. The contractor has come in and cut the road for the new curbs along 2nd Street Northwest from Poplar up to Minnick, and then we're going over again, like I've said before, over on 2nd Street Northeast from North Avenue to Minnick and put in the sidewalks over there. So again, that has started now. He's going to get in and try to be out of there this week because of school and the traffic, and he'll be in that 2nd Street Northwest side. So that's why he came in at this time, to try to get out of there. So I believe he'll be able to do that with the weather. Weather holds out for him, I think he'll be fine. Also, from last meeting, it was July, I believe it was 25th of 2021, we had the cemetery, Shunrun Meadows opened. And I thought I just wanted to give a quick report on, in that year, what has happened down there. So, we've had 125 lot sales in that year and 22 niche sales in that year, roughly accumulating to right around $106,000 in revenue. So I just wanted to report on that since it's been a year since we had the grand opening. That's the end of my report.
Any updates on Howden Buffalo? I'm not sure.
I'll let the mayor speak to that. I mean, I can tell you, but right now, there's 3 or 4 RFPs that are out, but they want to wait for the 4th quarter. They're afraid of.
But the cleanup, I guess I'm just
Oh,
talking
the
about
cleanup?
cleanup.
I'm sorry.
How far along that's,
It's been a long time.
You can see.
He'll speak to that, yeah.
It's nearly complete.
Yeah.
And hopefully by sometime in the 4th quarter, we'll know what redevelopers are interested in the property.
how about the city property out on Bluebell Drive is, we talked about.
City property on.
Oh,
the rest-
for Raising Cane's.
Yes.
Right now, Jeff, the gentleman from Raising Cane's is working with a local realtor because he likes a couple of the spots, they need a couple of the parcels above them.
Okay.
The last that I heard last week that it hasn't been well responded, there has been no correspondence, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions?
And in the coming weeks, I will have some information to share. We've been working on this for about the last 6 to 7 weeks. We're close on a new business, hopefully, at the Outlots at Menards, the first one would come in on the right. And then also, the old Hardee's building, or the old adult bookstore on West High. I believe we have a done deal there also, but I hopefully should be able to say something publicly about those two next meeting.
Great. Mr. Ricklick?
Yes, about the Second Street over here by, behind Guides.
Oh,
The
the
repair.
manholes?
Yeah,
Still waiting on the manholes to come.
okay. Do you
Yeah.
do you have an idea, or they give you an idea how far back that is from?
Now, I can say the last time that Brian had called, and now I'm not gonna lie to you, it's probably been 2 weeks, but he said around 4.5 weeks yet. And they've been quicker than that before, but he says they're so busy. 'Cause, Lindsay doesn't do it anymore. Lindsay got out of it.
Right.
So it's these guys that spun off Lindsay. Their pricing's great. Sometimes their wait is a little long.
Is there any way we could get some temporary patch in that to try to keep the stones down?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll see if we can try to, if it's gonna be something soon, I'll do it.
That's
If
what I said,
not,
if you could get a fine, if it's gonna be in 2 weeks, fine, but if it's gonna continue on,
yeah,
those stones get thrown around, and
yeah.
I've been asked, and I said, we can ask, I mean, if we get some temporary patch in there, try to hold that stuff down.
I know they go up every week. Right now, I think they probably went up and cleaned it all back up. I know some today doing it.
Yeah, but they're leaving, it's still gravel, and like I said, still stones come out of there, that's all I'm just saying, if they could get some cold patch on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have Brian call him tomorrow, see if that's gonna be a project, because of that bypass. So, but once we get to that point, I'll let everybody be aware of how that's gonna take place.
Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Any other questions for the service director? Move on, safety director, Mr. Popham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Last Friday in the police department, Captain Joe Skinner retired. And as a result of that, today, the mayor swore in his position, in Captain Skinner's position was Don Woods was promoted to captain to replace Don Woods in his position as a sergeant. Mitch Gobley was promoted. And then to fill the vacancy, Officer Melissa Snyder was hired. And that all took place this morning. That's all I have.
So we have full staff then?
Yes.
Any question from Mr. Popham? All right, now we'll move on to the auditor, Mrs. Gundy.
I have no report this evening, thank you.
All right, Mr. Gerber, treasurer's report.
No report, sir.
All right, Mr. Bate, the law director.
I have no report this evening, but I did want to say, if you see me on my phone, my assistant law director is recovering from surgery at home, and she is using my laptop. So when I'm looking on my phone, I am not texting people or checking on the Guardian score. I'm using it to look at our legislation.
Yeah, the Guardians are not playing tonight, so you're safe.
Well, I'm
there,
good.
Steve.
I'm safe. We're checking on the Deshaun Watson case. I'm looking
There
at
you
that.
go, yeah. All right, we move on to our board commission reports. Planning Commission, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission will meet here in council chambers tomorrow at 1 p.m. On our agenda, we'll discuss the rezoning of parcel down on East High Avenue to business so that the Tuscarawas County Commissioners can build the new Board of Elections building there. And also, we'll look over the RFPs we received for a zoning study.
All right, any questions from Mayor Day? All right, Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning Appeals will meet tomorrow night here in council chambers at 5 p.m. with one variance request to be heard. That's in my report.
All right, any questions from Mr. McAbeer? Airport Commission, Mr. Seldenwright.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will be meeting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. in council chambers. And that's all the report. Thank you.
All right. Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple updates. The track is near completion, and the lines, I think, will be done within the next 2 weeks. If you haven't seen the track, drive by, take a look at it. And then, as the mayor noted, the groundbreaking ceremony was held today for the pickleball courts, and that project will take about 2 months to complete. The next park board meeting will be held August 17th at noon, the Park Pavilion. That's all I have.
Any question for Mr. Pace? If not, we'll move on to Health Board. Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. No formal report this evening, but the Health Board will be meeting this coming Wednesday, the 10th, at noon here in council chambers. And certainly everyone's invited. Thank you.
All right, move on to our committee reports. Finance, Mr. Rickley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee met this evening at 6:15 PM to discuss some additions to the permanent appropriations. After a little bit of discussions and some explanations of the reasonings for the increases, the committee voted 3-0 to add it to the agenda night and request a suspension of rules to pass it as an emergency for the auditor. Meeting was adjourned at 6:24 PM. That's the end of my report.
Any questions for Mr. Rickley? If not, we'll move on to Public Works and Economic Development. Mr. Lonzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Works and Economic Development met this evening at 6:30 PM. We had 2 items to discuss. The first, we were discussing the possibility of adding curb strips to our sidewalk program. We had a lengthy discussion on that, and we decided we're gonna continue our discussion after we have some time to let that soak in and think about it and let everybody think about that. And so we're gonna have another meeting on that. And the other thing we discussed tonight was proposed ordinance number 14, 2022. And it's basically to update our small cell facilities and wireless support structure within the right of way, which is, from the law director let us know that this is pretty out of date. We haven't updated since 1995, and we need to go from pretty much the bag phone to the iPhone, technology-wise. And that was voted unanimously to be added to tonight's agenda, and the committee is asking that we would pass that on an emergency basis on first reading tonight.
All right, any questions for Mr. Lonzer? Now we'll move on to Safety, Health, and Service. Mr. Holland.
No formal report this evening, Mr. President.
Zoning and Annexation. Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Salary. Mr. Seldenright.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
Cemetery Board. Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report tonight, but we will be meeting this Thursday at 8 o'clock here in council chambers. Thank you.
Contact and Special. Mrs. May.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
Again, it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
All right, the floor is now open for visitors' comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise, state their name and address, and address all comments to the chair. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to council comments. Any council members wish to address for comments this evening?
I do.
Yes, Mr. Rickey.
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in the raising of the funds for the pickleball court to make that a reality. I think we had a great group of people out there that utilize that facility, and I think it's going to be well-used and well-receptive for our community. So I think Mr. O'Donnell and his foundation really stepped up to the plate to get that accomplished, along with the other foundations and the city's support also. So kudos to all of them, and we found a way to say yes to some people, and I think that's a good idea. So thank you.
Yeah, Charlie goes to the Park Foundation for out there getting those funds, but yes, that's great. All right, we move into our legislative agenda. Ms. Courtright.
Ordinance number 14, 2022, an ordinance to repeal and replace codified ordinance chapter 782, which was enacted in 1995 and needs to be updated due to both changes in the law and technology, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight?
Yes,
Mr.
I move
Lonzo.
that the rules be suspended on ordinance 14, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mr. Pace. Any discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. I would entertain now a motion to approve ordinance 14, 2022.
I'll make that motion to pass 14, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mr. Pace. Any discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 14, 2022 has passed.
Ordinance number 15, 2022, an ordinance by the council of the city of New Philadelphia, Ohio, amending and adjusting the permanent appropriations ordinance for the year 2022 and declaring an emergency, first reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I ask we suspend the rules for ordinance 15, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mr. Holland, thank you. Any discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Page.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I ask we pass ordinance 15, 2022.
Do I have a second? Mr. Holland, thank you. All right, any discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Page.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 15, 2022 has passed.
That concludes legislation for this evening,
right.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Corright. All right, is there any unfinished or old business that you brought before council this evening? Is there any new business that needs to be brought before council to discuss this evening? Mr. Pace?
Yes, I think I probably should have done this in my parks report, but just want to make council aware of a new project that will be coming up for Field 1 at the high school baseball field. I am currently on the Turf Tuscarora Diamond Committee that is led by Mr. Ricklick. The project will be done in 3 phases, the first phase being turf infield, new dugouts, and the backstop. The field will be used by many age groups and will drive business into this community. And Mr. Ricklick has done a great job putting the project together. He's put a good committee together. I'm excited to be a part of it, and I think it'd be great to see it built in Tuscarora Park. So I'll now turn it over to Mr. Ricklick here to add any comments.
We'll be doing a presentation during the park committee meeting that Mr. Pace will be doing. It'll be a little presentation showing the engineering drawings and the design of the 3 phases and the purpose of the project and the strategy of raising the funds for this project, that the 3 phases, at each phase, there'll be no downtime for the field between phases. So when phase 1 is done, you can play on it. When phase 2 is done, you can play on it. When phase 3 is done, it'll be complete. So there'll never be an interruption of in between phases. You need to do more than 1 phase at a time. So, yes, I want to thank the mayor, the park board, the park foundation, the New Philly City Schools. There is a couple other partners that are looking at the project to help support us in many ways, but also my committee members that was put together. Mr. Tom Farbizo and myself take care of the construction engineering. Mr. Ed Marsh and my wife Sharon Ricklick take care of the mailing and contact. The facilities is taken care of by Mr. Ed Brill and Mr. Chase Hostetler. And fundraising is done by the second best fundraiser beside Tom Farbizo is Mitch Pace. So
That's a big shoot.
what he has done with the ball fields and helping the city here, he's done a great job. So I'm glad to have him on my committee and the other 5 members. We'll keep the council will be kept informed at all phases, as is all the other partners that are involved in this. It's not a small undertaking. It's a very expensive undertaking, but I'll save that for the presentation of next week, next council meeting. So if anybody has any questions, I'll gladly answer them, but if not, we'll see it in the presentation. Yes, Mrs. Ramos.
It's gonna be it's a stadium, isn't it?
It'll be a stadium format, as it is right now, a stadium format. It has bleacher
It'll
seating.
be another stadium
No.
beside the stadium we have?
No, it's a baseball stadium's type. It's just, they call it a stadium.
Right,
It'll be fenced in, yeah, so it's a stadium.
but it'll be built like a stadium, right?
Can you
I
explain
mean,
me what?
brick and mortar and,
Built like a ballpark.
It's a ballpark. It'll be a baseball park, so it'll be. It's not gonna have a dome on it, if that's what you're wondering.
oh, no, like where I
It's not
go
gonna
to
have-
see the Cleveland Indians play or,
It'll hold approximately, when it's done, the seating will be around 1,200 with the portable seating that will get moved from the football field over to this field. The portable seating, currently the city hauls that seating down to the South Side Park at times. They can just take it across the road now to be utilized in the spring for baseball and back to the fall, back to the football stadium.
so why do we need this?
Why do you need what?
Why do we need a baseball stadium?
I don't understand why do we need one? Because the
We
youth,
have fields now, I mean, why
Well,
do
they're
we
gonna, it's the
need?
existing field, they're just gonna renovate the existing.
we're just renovating the field to a upper level, so you can play multiple age groups on there, and it can bring revenue into the city by running tournaments and other fundraisers through that facility. Advertising on the scoreboard is a good example of how to fund the continuous of the use of the field.
Tournaments are a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't know if it's been on 60 Minutes and things of that nature. People travel from here all over the country to play baseball. And if we could do that here, that would be a huge asset. What they're doing is upgrading the facility there so that we can start doing things like that here. Dover has a tournament. We don't have the facilities currently to do a tournament. That's something that Councilman Pace is working on to make sure that our ball fields at the waterworks, when it rains, they're not out of commission for 2 days. The one by the football stadium is gonna be able to be used by all multiple age groups, not just the varsity players, and that's what's gonna be great about it. And it's all being paid privately. This isn't being done by, this isn't being paid for by with taxpayer money.
We will request some money from the city to help fund it. I'm not gonna say we won't.
I was gonna say.
But the manpower hours taking care of the field right now is about 2 men, 8 hours a day to take care of that ball field. We're gonna make it a maintenance, low maintenance field, which one person, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day can do the same thing that's been done by 2 guys. So, it's not just build a field because you think you wanna build a field. It's being smart, using manpower and upgrading to a level for ADA compliance, so ADA areas are inside this seating area, so they can have a place to sit and watch the field in a safe, and I think it's gonna be an outstanding facility when it's done, so,
If
for
you
the
get a
players
chance-
and the,
Get a chance, look up Harrison Central's high school baseball field, and if we take that and put that in the middle of Tuscarora Park, it'll be the talk of the state, I think.
Yeah, Harrison Central's got a phenomenal, unbelievable field. I mean, it looks like a minor league baseball stadium. And that's a county of 13,000 people.
All right, any other new business?
Mr. President, were you going to take a vote on the recommendation from the committee of the whole?
They did that.
We did that.
That was in the committee,
Oh, I guess we could take,
yeah.
That's how I was gonna do that, they didn't think we needed to do that, but.
Just to, you know,
just to verify it.
just to make sure, yeah.
All right.
It's a good idea.
Okay, and the recommendation of the committee of the whole was to, because of COVID, to not do anything as far as redistricting goes, and so, let's have a roll call.
Mr. Holland,
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
No.
Mrs. Ramos.
No.
Mr. Rickland.
yes.
Mr. Seldenright.
Yes.
All right, and it's passed. All right, any other business? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I would make a motion that this meeting of the New Philadelphia City Council be adjourned.
That a little longer.
That's it. ED, you got it.
Earl Dean.
Keep rocking.